If you've recently left your job and you had a workplace retirement account, if you don't know what your options are, you might get hit with a massive tax bill, or worse, erode your retirement due to unnecessary fees. Hi, my name is Jacob Wade, and today I want to walk you through the 5 options for dealing with your old 401k account at your job. Now, most people might assume you can just leave the money there, let it grow, but that's not always the case. And some 401k accounts will force evict you and make you cash out, and you'll get slapped with a penalty and a huge tax bill at the same time. So to avoid losing money and unnecessary tax bills, we're going to walk through the 5 different options you have to deal with your old 401k account, including the pros and cons of each. And make sure to stay to the end of the video where I will show you my 3 favorite places to do a 401k rollover and how to do those. Okay, let's get into it. So really, the first option that you have is to just leave it alone. And as I mentioned, that might not necessarily be the best option, but if your plan doesn't have a provision in there that requires you to cash it out or move it somewhere else, you can't just leave it in place. Now, there's really only a couple of pros to this. One is that your money just stays invested, so you don't really have to do anything. It just stays in the market and it kind of continues to do its thing. And then the other advantage is something called the age of 55 rule. And this is kind of an advanced tax planning strategy or withdrawal strategy. But basically, if you are close to age 50 or 55, and if you have money in a 401k account from an old employer, if you leave it in there, you can actually start withdrawing it at age 55 instead of waiting to age 59 and a half, which is what most retirement accounts require you to wait until, like an individual retirement account. So age of 55 means, hey, if I'm going to need access to these funds and I don't want to pay the 10% penalty for withdrawing it early, maybe I'll keep it in that 401k account. But you need to consider what the downsides are. So number one is there's really just limited investment options in most 401k accounts. If you think about it, your HR department or whoever sets up the 401k account from your work, they partner with somebody and they say, give them a few options to choose from. Usually there's some mutual funds or target date funds inside that account, and you don't really have a lot of choice. And if you compare that with moving it into a different type of account like an IRA, where you can choose individual stocks and all kinds of different assets, including index funds and those types of things, you're really limited when you're stuck inside your 401k account. And then the other downside of those limited investments is a lot of them have additional fees. So if you look at your 401k investment options, if you've ever looked at those, there's something called an expense ratio. If that's above like 0.1% or even 0.25%, if it's higher than that, and a lot of times they are, you are paying unnecessary fees on funds that typically don't outperform the market. So you might be paying extra fees in your funds on the expense ratio side, but also there's sometimes just management fees or account fees. So you'll see these monthly or quarterly fees that just come out for managing your account, which most IRA accounts, or especially if you do like index fund investing, you're not going to pay those types of things. So those fees can eat into your retirement. And if you think about it, just an extra 2% in fees could eat almost half of your retirement over a long enough period of time. It sounds small, but it compounds over time. So those management fees can be a huge problem. And then honestly, you might just be forced to cash out anyway. Some workplace 401k accounts, if you have less than $5,000 invested, they might require you to cash out of there and then take that check and move it somewhere else anyway. And if you don't move that money into like an IRA account, for example, or into your new workplace 401k account within 60 days, you might get hit with a 10% penalty from the IRS and a tax bill at the same time at your income rate, which is awful. So please make sure you talk to your HR department if you're going to leave your 401k there and ask if you're going to be booted out anyway. And so really, I am not a huge fan of leaving your money in a 401k account. There are just too many downsides. You have very little control, and typically there are higher fees. All right, so let's look at option number 2 here. So option number 2 is to just cash it out. Now, if you lost your job, for example, and you need access to those funds immediately, this could be an option. I will tell you it's not the best option for dealing with an emergency situation. And honestly, even just like a home equity loan or even a loan against this 401k account might be better than cashing it out, but it is an option. So the pros to cashing out your 401k account when you leave a job and taking access of those funds is you have access to those funds. That's really the only upside. Again, this is in a dire emergency if you absolutely need those funds right away. But when we get into the downsides, you'll see why this is not a great idea. So number one is you have to pay taxes on that money. If you cash it out and you don't move that money into some other retirement accounts, you'll have to pay your income tax rate. Now, if you're in the 20, 22% tax rate or more, that could be a huge chunk of that money anyway. So say you pull out $10,000, we might owe $2,500 in taxes just from pulling that money out. So that's already a massive hit. And on top of that, the IRS imposes a 10% penalty on early withdrawals. So again, if you're at that age 55, as we mentioned earlier, or you're of retirement age, you don't have to pay this penalty because you can access your 401k funds. But if you're under that age, you're going to have to pay this penalty on top of those taxes due. So boom, there goes another $1,000. If you're talking about that $10,000 amount, you just lost $3,500 because you needed to access that cash. You would be far better off getting a loan, even credit cards, to be honest. Not financial advice, but truly that would be a better option. And if you cash out while the market is down, you're actually going to be selling at a lower value. So not only are you taking a 20 to 25% hit on the income tax side, taking a 10% penalty hit you got to pay direct to the IRS. And then if you are cashing out these funds while the market is down, you might take another 10 to 15 to 20% hit, depending on where the market's at. This is a massively terrible idea, to be honest. Again, if you're in an absolute emergency, you have no other options, you do what you got to do. But I just want to be very transparent on what would happen if you cashed out that money. And then finally, you can't make up for those deposits. You can only deposit a certain amount of money into a workplace retirement account each year. You can't go back and make up for those deposits if you pull the money out now. Now all you have is from today forward, what can you max out in those retirement accounts going forward? So you kind of lose time when you do this as well. So that's what would happen if you cash out your 401k account. All right, now we're going to talk about option number 3, which is moving your money from a 401k to a traditional IRA account or individual retirement account. Now, this is probably the most popular option because it avoids extra taxes and it's pretty seamless and straightforward. And a lot of IRA accounts make this pretty easy. So let's talk through some of the reasons people like to do this. So again, number one, there's no tax consequences. Both 401k and IRA accounts are pre-tax accounts. So there's no difference in how taxes are treated. So you don't have to pay any taxes or penalties or anything like that. It's a seamless rollover. The other advantage is that you have way more investment choices. Now, with a 401k account, as mentioned earlier, there might be a limited selection and maybe like 20, 25 investments. And with an IRA, you have thousands of investment options, typically of individual stocks, maybe some bonds and ETFs and mutual funds. You can have a lot more investment choices with a traditional IRA account. And there are less fees typically than your regular 401k because IRA accounts don't usually have like an account fee or a maintenance fee. That all goes away. And you can choose ETFs and index funds, things that have very low expense ratios, and you can save a ton of money on fees. If you compare the average fees in a 401k versus an IRA, it's typically a lot less. Not always, but typically. And finally, you can actually access the money a little bit easier in your IRA account versus a 401k. Now, a 401k, you can borrow against it, but that's about it. With an IRA, you can pull out funds early for things like educational expenses like college, or even for putting a down payment on a new home. So there's some more flexibility within the IRA account itself. Now, it's not all roses and rainbows. There are a couple of downsides. One, you can't borrow against it. As I mentioned earlier, the 401k lets you borrow against a portion of your balance, and you cannot do that with an IRA account. And moving money into an IRA, regular IRA versus like a Roth IRA, it complicates this more advanced tax strategy called the backdoor Roth IRA. So if you have contributions into your IRA account that are non-deductible, like you didn't save actually on taxes, but you dump all this 401k money in there, or if there's any non-deductible contributions that were in that 401k as well, putting this into a regular IRA, and then eventually you're like, I want to move this money to a Roth so I don't have to pay taxes later. Well, it treats everything as already deducted, and so you might lose out a little bit on taxes. Again, more advanced tax strategy, I would talk to a tax professional before considering the Roth backdoor, but it is something to consider when you're moving from a 401k to a traditional IRA account. Okay, option number 4 is doing the 401k into the Roth IRA account. Now, again, this is moving from a pre-tax to a post-tax account, so there is going to be some taxes on this, but this can be a way to move money into a Roth IRA, especially if you're a high earner and you don't qualify for a Roth IRA. Now, if you're single and make over $138,000 a year, or married filing joint making over $228,000 a year in 2023, you don't qualify for a Roth IRA. And so this might be a way to get some funds over into that Roth IRA without worrying about those income limits. This is kind of a version of a backdoor Roth IRA. You're coming in the back door and not having to worry about those income limits. And the cool thing is the money in there, again, is going to grow tax-free. Okay, so let's talk about some of the pros of moving from a 401k to a Roth IRA. So just like the traditional, you're going to have a better investment selection. You're going to have lower fees and more flexibility. But one unique thing about the Roth IRA is you can access your principal investment at any time. So your deposited amount, whatever your cost basis is, again, if you need to talk to your tax pro or your 401k provider to say, what's my cost basis? That is considered your principal investment. Once you move it to your Roth IRA, you can actually access those funds at any time. Now, you can't touch the growth in earnings until later, but we'll talk about that in a second. And then finally, of course, the Roth IRA gives you tax-free growth. That means all of the money in there, all of its earnings and compounding over the next coming decades, you could pull it out tax-free at retirement. There is no tax bill due. So for tax planning purposes, a Roth IRA is fantastic for that. Now let's talk about some of the downsides of moving your regular 401k over to a Roth IRA. There, of course, is a tax bill due. Because you're taking pre-tax money and putting into a post-tax account, the IRS is going to see that as income, and you're going to have to pay taxes on that money. And the other downside is some of your funds are actually going to be locked for 5 years. The Roth IRA has a 5-year rule, meaning your account needs to have been opened for 5 years before you can touch the earnings and growth on that, even if you're in retirement. So this is something you need to make sure you're planning for if you're moving, say you are retiring out of your job and moving your 401k into a Roth IRA. You can touch the principal, but not the earnings and growth for 5 years. So just make sure that you understand that when you're doing your retirement planning. And of course, it's important to note that if you have a Roth 401k at work, moving to a Roth IRA is the only option. You can't move it into a traditional. You wouldn't want to go backwards anyway. So you can only roll that Roth 401k into a Roth IRA. Okay, and option number 5, finally, you can actually just roll your old 401k into your new one. So if you get a new job and they have a 401k account, you can actually just roll those funds into your new 401k, and it's a pretty seamless process. Now, there are some upsides to this. Of course, it's easy to have everything parked in one place. So you're consolidating multiple retirement accounts into one, and you can manage it all in one place. And a lot of these 401k companies let you do a direct rollover, so you don't have to worry about being the middleman. Not all of them. Sometimes they'll send you a check and you've got to go deposit it with your new 401k provider, but direct rollover makes things very, very easy. But there are some downsides to using a 401k to 401k rollover. Namely, you have your same limited investment selection as your old one. The nice thing about an IRA is it kind of gives you an out. If you leave your job, you get fired, you retire, you now can take those 401k funds and unlock them and put them into something that gives you a ton of investment options. But if you're just taking it from one job to another, instead of unlocking your investment selection, you're just going to lock it into your new 401k's limited investment selection. And of course, that 401k might also come with those higher fees. This is why it's important to talk to your provider or your HR department and say, what are the fees? Are there account fees? What are the expense ratios of these investments? I want to make sure that I'm not wasting money. So that's option number 4, just moving your old 401k into your new one. Again, it kind of limits some of the flexibility. Okay, so those are the 5 options you have for your old 401k accounts. And now I want to show you exactly how to set up a 401k rollover with Vanguard, Fidelity, and M1 Finance. So you have your choice. These are top 3 brokers that I enjoy using and I personally have accounts with, and I want to show you how easy it is to get started with them. Okay, so first up we have Vanguard here, And in their rollover account, again, I'll have links for this stuff below. But if you go to Vanguard's account, you can just go hit start a rollover here. And it's going to walk you through the process. So it's going to ask you, what is it you want to do? Say, I want to roll over an employer plan, such as a 401k, and hit continue. It's going to ask if you want advice. So you have to pay for that advice or just do it on your own. And I'm going to put here, I'll start on my own. And I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, but basically there's just a couple of steps. So step one is to open a Vanguard account. If you already have a Vanguard IRA, you can actually roll the funds into that one. But if you need to open a new one, you can go in here and open a new IRA account. And then step two is to contact your financial institution. And you're going to see that all of the brokers require this. You basically need to talk to your 401k provider and say, hey, I would like to roll over directly to Vanguard into an IRA. What do I need? Sometimes they'll need something called a letter of acceptance, and Vanguard even says here you can create that digitally here. But basically, give me the information that I need to get to you so I can move my money from the 401k to the IRA. So they might need, some personal information, identity. They might need some personal information, some identity verification documentation, this letter of acceptance here, and then obviously your account numbers so they can put the money over there. And usually what they'll do is they will send a check over to Vanguard, or they might even be able to do a digital rollover. Either way, it could take a couple of weeks for those funds to arrive. If for some reason they need to send a check directly to you, you have 60 days to get those funds deposited into this Vanguard IRA. That is an IRS rule. Otherwise, you're going to get hit with that early withdrawal penalty and those taxes and all that not fun stuff. So make sure if for some reason they're going to send the check to you, to get it into here. And one thing Vanguard didn't put in their steps here that I think is very, very important is when the money hits your IRA, go invest it. A lot of times they'll just stick it in like a money market fund and they won't tell you, and you need to get that money into the market. So make sure you pick some index funds, whatever that is, and go invest those funds. Don't just let it sit there, earning a little bit of interest. Okay, next up is Fidelity, and you're going to look, it's very familiar to the Vanguard one. You're going to need to set up an IRA account so you can open a rollover IRA here. You're going to need to contact your old provider and what information do I need? Do I need a letter of acceptance? Blah, blah, blah. Do we need the account numbers, right? Go through all of those things with your 401k provider, get that information, and then you can get that over so they can initiate the transfer over to Fidelity. So again, step three here is to have the money deposited into your account. They even tell you, hey, make the check payable to this, right? So they're telling you exactly what to do here, and they even say, again, you have 60 days to get that money in there. You're going to be penalized. And I appreciate Fidelity at the bottom says, hey, invest your money. Put it into the market. Don't let it just sit here. So make sure you're invested toward your goals. Okay, and finally, M1 Finance, you're going to see the same steps again. So with M1, you can go in and open an account, and I'll leave a link to a video up here or up here that I did on how to open a Roth IRA account, but opening a traditional IRA, exact same process. So you can go in and open an IRA at M1 Finance. Then step two, you need to initiate the rollover, talking to your old 401k provider, say, hey, I want it to send it here. Can you get that rollover started? What information do you need? And then make sure they make the check out to Apex Clearing, which is what M1 Finance uses for their clearing firm. Again, if the check comes straight to you, you got 60 days to deposit it into M1 Finance. And so make sure that gets deposited. Again, they're reiterating here, make check payable to here, include your name and the IRA account number on that check. Here's the mailing address. And M1 Finance is a little bit different, where instead of just dumping your money into a money market, when you open that IRA account, you'll create an investment pie, which is, a mix of different ETFs where your money is automatically invested as soon as it hits the account. So the cool thing about M1 Finance is it's a little more automated. As soon as your 401k money hits that IRA account, it's automatically invested based on what you've already created. Again, in that video, I'll show you how to create an investment pie. I'll put a link below on opening a Roth IRA with M1 Finance. But M1 Finance is a little bit more automated once that money hits your account. So I'm a big fan. And again, pretty straightforward. Same steps for Vanguard, Fidelity, M1 Finance, all three of them. All right. I hope that was helpful. Now you know exactly what to do with your 401k plan once you leave your job. Again, if you're let go, retired, you're changing positions, don't just leave it there. You can, but it's really not the best option. And if you need to do a rollover, you can use one of those firms. I'll put links below. You've got Vanguard, Fidelity, and One Finance is the places that I put my money, and I highly recommend them. But the bottom line is, don't just let the money sit there. Don't ignore it. Take control of your retirement. Take control of your investments, and you're going to get a lot further. And if you like this type of content, I'm a big fan of investing and all the detailed tax stuff. I used to be a tax professional too. So if you have any questions about that stuff, drop them in the comments below. If you like videos like this, hit the thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button. Share this with somebody who needs to do something with their old 401k that's just sitting there. And I will make more content like this if you find it helpful. So let me know. And I appreciate you being here. Thanks for spending the time. And until next time, peace. Okay, what do you think? Next time I do an investment video, do you think people will pay attention more if I put on glasses? And in my thumbnail, I'm just like, I don't know. What do you think? Glasses? No glasses. Which one makes me look smarter? Or maybe just doing this ending to the video makes me look dumber. Either way. So awesome. Next time.